David Michael Boje, and I'm the founder of the notion of Antenarrative-Storytelling-Processes. There's now over 70 publications. You can find them at antenarrative.com. So let's take a dive into this world of anti-narrative and its impact on Project 2025. We're not just talking about the what, we want the why of Project 2025. So this is where antenarrative storytelling processes, what I call ASPs, can help you. And I'll try to bring it down to earth for you. The Project 2025 is full of stories. It's full of narratives, right? That document just overflowing with storytelling. And we can understand that storytelling by analyzing it with anti-narrative. For example, it says it's advancing positive change for America in that Project 2025, but that's a loaded word. It's positive for whom? And it's not positive for so many others. So how do we uncover the why of Project 2025 and that grand plan for changing American dreams? So I have 7 B's, and I gave you that rundown in the previous video. So let me not start with that. But let's dive into how do we analyze Project 2025 with anti-narrative processes. Let's just make it simple. There's fake storytelling and there's true storytelling. True Storytelling is a book I wrote with Jens Larsen and Lena Brun, 2021. You can get it if you like. And we try to understand what is true storytelling. Walking the talk, walking the walk, but walking the talk, right? Make your actions match your words. And what's fake storytelling? Well, I think you have to just tune into social media to figure that one out, right? There's a disconnect between what's said, right, and what people are doing. If you buy into one of the presidential leaders' stories, you're buying into their vision and a whole slew of anti-narrative processes that I want to bring to your attention today. This is real life. And one of my big publications is called Tamara-land. It's an analysis of Disney. It's an analysis of being in a play, like a whodunit play. And you don't sit there as an audience. You split up into different groups and you're walking from around different stages. 10 stages with action happening all at once, actors on those stages. And you have to choose which of the 10 stages do I go to first. And other audience members go somewhere else. And depending on which room you go to in Tamara-land, right? Every organization is a Tamara-land if it's got more than 2 rooms of storytelling happening at the same time. Because you can't be in both rooms at once. You can't be in 10 rooms at once. So you have to talk to other people and find out what's going on in the storytelling of the rooms I wasn't in. So think about Project 2025 as a big anti-narrative, but a big Tamara-land. I worried about Project 25 putting corporate interest over your interest, right? And putting a kind of an exploitative approach to the environment over kind of a stewardship approach. The Democratic and Republican Party have wildly different futures, what I call anti-narrative bets on the futures. They're investing in those bets. And it's going to be a very different world after this election. There's voices that are not being heard in Project 2025, and we need to acknowledge those voices. Whose lives and hopes are at stake in Project 2025? If we're in Tamara-land and we're going from room to room to figure out Project 2025, we're tuning into social media, watching speeches, looking at commentaries, right? Talking to friends and relatives, people at work. Are these people taking responsibility for the stories they're telling, for the outcome of these stories? For the outcomes of Project 2025? So True Storytelling, the book with Jens Larsen and Lena Brun, looks at being authentic and genuine in our storytelling. Being accountable, because stories matter.
12 years ago, I was named Man of the Year of Michigan. Can you believe it? Long before I thought about it.
Because you're enforcing your story on everybody else. And it's all about controlling the narrative. If you work in a corporation, most of these corporations are trying to control the narrative through millions and millions of dollars of advertising to create an image of their corporation, their CEOs, their product. And if we take these corporate narratives at face value, or the Project 2025 at face value, and don't dig into the antenarrative processes that compose it, then we're going to be fooled. We could get conned. So I've been in a number of religious movements, started out Catholic, married into the Lutheran Church in first marriage, and we've skipped over into some evangelical, got divorced, second marriage. Much better, by the way. Got into Jainism from India, ahimsa, respect for all life. So I have my point of view on this whole thing. And I'm ready to challenge Project 2025. And that's a big challenge, a big project. Because with Tamara-land and Antenarrative-Processes, I think I can make sense of the stories being told in Project 2025. Leads us to the big question. Knowing all of this work on antenarrative, again, see the previous video where I go into the 7 processes. What are we going to do? How do we become an antenarrative-activist? Don't underestimate yourself. There's things you can do even as individuals about Project 2025. It's a tall order, I grant you. But a number of committed people get together, as Margaret Mead says, they can change the world. There's also a butterfly effect. You can send a ripple into the big pond of storytelling, and that ripple can be heard in Project 2025 and in the election that's coming up within a couple of weeks. How do we actually do that? Listening to the stories that you're telling. Getting creative about your own stories, understanding how these stories are composed of the little fragments of your life, right? Your bits of history, your bets on the future, right? Your spirituality. Can you become more genuine, more authentic, and walk the talk? Can you tell the story of the change? And please never underestimate just how powerful storytelling can be. You can shift the whole landscape of the American dream. You can counter Project 2025. Whether you're Republican or Democrat, I'm sure you don't want the extreme versions of 2025 with people being locked up into almost concentration camps, political enemies being rounded up by the military. This is not just abstraction. Project 2025 is playing out in our lives and in the future of America. And it's a question of what stories do you want to see shaping the future of America? The next chapter of Project 2025 is still being written, and it will be decided not just in the election, but in what happens after the election. No matter if you elect Harris or Trump, there's still going to be a Heritage Foundation. There's still going to be this conservative push for a kind of utilitarian approach to the environment, where the environment is resources, not any aliveness. And even humans are treated as resources. I've taught in the business school for 40 years, and I watched the human resource management approach develop, and humans are treated as resources. The environment is treated as resources. It's lifeless. You got to ask yourself what kind of story you want to have. So I hope this has been helpful and interesting. And give us a like, give us a subscribe, share it with your friends. If you put in a comment, I promise to answer. All right. Thank you very much.